Hey, what's up, YouTube? This is Victor de Velasco speaking. Well, I guess circumstances tell me that I should start doing regional reports on YouTube. I'm gonna give it a try and see how it works. Honestly, I have no idea of how to make videos or what is the best way that you guys will enjoy my content. So, in the meantime, I'll just take inspiration from Rahul Reddy on how he does his tournament reports. So, I'm going to do something similar and shout outs to him for providing the idea. And, well, I'm going to try my best and fill out what happened in this last regional, which was the Toronto regional. And let's see how it went out. As some of you probably already know, I only went 4-4-1. So, I came from an amazing run back in Sacramento, getting top four at it, and all of a sudden, deck decided to not cooperate. So I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try to run down the 9 rounds that I went through and try to explain what went wrong and what decks did I end up playing, and also we're gonna analyze the deck list. So I guess before we get started, maybe I should talk about the deck list itself. Um, so it's basically almost the same list I brought to Sacramento. The biggest difference now is the Togepi. So for anybody that I was wondering why did I play the Surging Sparks Togepi, it's because I was lazy to get the ability one. That's it. I couldn't get it in time, and I just decided to bring that one, and apparently the Surging Sparks one, and apparently, well, I never needed it because I didn't stumble upon any Dragapults in Sacramento, so there was no necessity to get the ability one. But now I got it in Reverse Hollow, so we should be good with that. The biggest difference is the mana fee is no longer there. I figured that Lost Box wasn't necessarily getting a lot of popularity, and Hydreigon didn't end up being the threat that I was fearing that it was going to be. And Regidrago, for some reason, it always seems to get the combo. So I was like, okay, fine. If he gets it, he gets it. But everything else, Manaphy seems like a dead card. I know that Irida is a +1 with Manaphy, and then you can discard with Ultra Ball or Superior Energy Retrieval. But I decided to, you know what, just gamble it. And then I took out my 2 techs, which were the Lost Vacuum and the Canceling Cologne. And instead, I went with adding a switch, which is basically a must now for the Terrapagos Cloth matchup. Also, I kind of thought, now that the list was public and people figured out that I wasn't playing Switch, then maybe some players could play around the fact that I have no way to switching. So I thought that it was actually a good idea to now catch everybody off guard with the Switch. And then you might notice that the Scyther line, the Caesar line, is right here. So the 2 techs were replaced by the Caesar line, and the Manaphy was replaced with a switch. So why Caesar? So I thought, well, usually you use the Canceling Cologne to get a one-hit KO on Pikachu, but Pikachu has not been that much of a threat. And Caesar just so happens to also be a good counter for Cornerstone Mask and Mimikyu. And also, if you happen to have your opponent on even prices, then Caesar can come in handy just giving out 1 prize. Also, Caesar is not knocked out by Iron Thorns. No, sorry, Iron Hands, my bad. And I don't know, even Sableye can't get a one shot on Caesar, so I thought it was a good inclusion, but we'll see throughout the report and see if that was a good idea or not. But most of the deck is the same, and well, let's get to the tournament run and see what went wrong. So, first opponent is Dylan Gunn from the US. So, he was playing Pidgeot Control, and we ended up in a tie. So, what happened was on game one, it was really funny. So, he went first, and he started up with a Pidgey, and I don't remember what was in his bench, but I started up with Gimmighoul and Togepi. I just so happened to have the Thornton in hand. So what happened was my opponent decided to immediately rare candy Pidgeot, get the double turbo, and get a knockout on Gimmighoul. But I guess he wasn't aware that I played Thornton because all of a sudden I Thorntoned the Togepi into Gimmighoul, evolved into Gholdengo, and then got a one shot on Pidgeot. And then everything went downhill for him. Like, well, he lost the Pidgeot, and Pidgeot controller kind of relies on Pidgeot to get everything. So, yeah. So Then I still remember that I used the Scizor to get the KO on a Mimikyu and then a Cornerstone Mask. And since he didn't have Pidgeot around, it was very difficult for him to keep up. So game one goes to me. Game two, he goes first and he gets a turn one Genesect. So that's already a bad sign because I can't ace spec. I have to get all my energies in the old-fashioned way. He misfortunes a couple superior energy retrievals, and that's when I decide to scoop. Game three, my opponent starts with Black Kurami X, and it just so happened to be Wig to Metal, so I get to the EC2 prizes. Then he has the Pidgeot, and I have no way to get a knockout, so I remember I used the bundle, and he promoted a Pidgey. And I also got the Togekiss in play. But I get the Kiona, the Pidgey, and I don't get a heads from Togekiss. So I'm down to three prizes. Then my opponent plays a couple Mimikyus and a Cornerstone Mask, if I remember correctly. Or no, he hasn't played it yet. So he's got a Mimikyu. I think he has a couple Mimikyus. Yeah, he's got a couple Mimikyus. And then I use the Scizor. I retreat the Gholdengo, so the Gholdengo no longer has any energies, and I take out the Mimikyu, and once again I flip tails. But then when I got the knockout, time was called. I believe the time was already called, and here's where the errors start. So I have a Gholdengo on the bench that doesn't have energies, and I get the KO with the Scizor. My opponent's got a Cornerstone Mask in the active, a Mimikyu on the bench, a Pidgeot, and I don't remember what else. So the Scizor could only do 160, so it wasn't enough to get a KO on the Cornerstone, and obviously the Cornerstone I cannot damage it with Gholdengo. So my opponent counter catches my Greninja, um, then he bumps my Pokestop into a Lost City, and I just so happen to have very few cards in hand, and my opponent passes. So, but the problem was a turn before, I remember I discarded a Pokestop, and that's what I think cost me the game, or at least cost me a tie, because I could only draw one card out of the Gholdengo, and then I used bundle, but my opponent actually noticed that I had very few cards in hand, so he promoted the Pidgeot. If he would have promoted the Mimikyu, I get a knockout with Scizor because I can always attach retreat the Greninja, which I happen to have the energy, so I was able to retreat. But I couldn't retreat the Greninja and also attach the Gholdengo. So the Scizor couldn't. If he would have got the knockout on Mimikyu, then everything would have been decided with a coin flip. So my opponent took the gamble of promoting Pidgeot, and it worked out for him. Um, so yeah, so he made the read considering that I have a very few cards in my hand. He knew I couldn't have switch, superior, an extra energy, two cards to discard. It was a lot. So yeah. So my errors were that I didn't concede game two quickly, and maybe I could have had an extra turn and maybe win the game. And the other one was discarding the Pokestop with the Ultra Ball. Maybe that Pokestop I could have just bumped it again and maybe get new cards, and maybe I that would have been a different game. So moving on to round two, it is against Dylan Barta, also from the U.S. So game one, I start with Gimmighoul, and my opponent goes first. He misses the dunk by not having the Sneasler in play, so I get 6 damage counters on the Gimmighoul. I play a second Gimmighoul and a Greninja, and then I remember I switched into the Greninja to prevent the poison KO and also to live a 130 HP Pokemon in the active, so he can't do that shenanigan again. So it seems my opponent actually used the V-Star to get just the Hisuian Heavy Bolt to go for a bundle. I'm pretty sure his hand wasn't that good because if he went that far just to get a knockout and a Gimmighoul, then that's a lot. And apparently my opponent did not play the Genesect, so I didn't need Togekiss for that game. I just ended up getting the Gholdengo. He couldn't get knockouts, and I won in game one. Game two, he goes first, doesn't even try the turn one KO. I noticed that 3 of my non-metal energies are priced, which is bad because you know when the ace pick is used, you're not gonna get that many energies, and you're still gonna have 2 metal energies in your prizes. So you're not gonna have that many energies for the first attacks. So unfortunately, I don't. I have a slow start, and the Terapagos, and he actually gets Terrapagos one hit KOs in a row. He kills one of the Gholdengos, then he kills the other one, and then he just happens to have the bear in the bench, and he has the mochi and everything ready. So it's like, okay, that's checkmate. Go to game three. I go first. I noticed that my opponent was kind of breaking because he even went as far as hitting me with cloth, and not even the poison would have got me the knockout. So I remember I even bossed, get 2 prizes. Poison doesn't get me the knockout. I go down to 3 prizes, but then I finally get the Togekiss, but once again I get tails, and I go down to 2 prizes, and that's when time is called. So I remember I was a bit nervous because if my opponent would Iono me, counter captured me, and then I don't get the last knockout, then that would have been game. But then I remember he played a Carmine, if I'm not mistaken, and then I was like, okay, I got it because I have the boss and I'm gonna get the win, and that's it. So I have a score of 1-1. Then I go in round three against Charizard, and this is where everything starts to go downhill. So in the first game, the ace pick is priced. So and against Charizard, you kind of need all of your energies in one go because there was one turn where I was down 4 prizes, my opponent was down to three, and I was one energy short of getting the KO on the Charizard. And I remember I ended up using Irida to get the counter catcher to get a knockout on a Pidgeot rather than getting the rare candy to evolve into Togekiss. If I could have knocked out the Charizard and also get the Togekiss, maybe I could have gone down to 1 prize and prevent the Briar play. Not to mention that if I get the KO on the Charizard, even without the Togekiss, my opponent would have needed to get another Charizard and get the Briar. And even though I got the Pidgeot, he was still able to get the Briar through Fecundipity. So that ace pick being priced cost me the game in that one. So game two, nothing special. I remember I had 2 energies in my trash and I couldn't uh, obviously get a knockout or anything. So I ended up using Superior Energy Retrieval to get 2 energies just to boss the Duskull. And that made the difference because I prevented him from getting a knockout on his second turn because he had no way to get extra damage, and even the Defiance Band couldn't get the knockout on the Gholdengo. So we're good. Game three, this is where I noticed that the Togekiss is priced, and here goes my first mistake. My opponent goes first, and I foolishly decide to bench the Togepi. So obviously he uses Dusclops, gets the KO on the Togepi, and then gets the KO on the Scyther. And then, well, he's gone to 4, I take 2 prizes, he takes 2 prizes, I take 2 prizes, and then all of a sudden, I'm down to 1 prize because, well, Dusclops and 2 knockouts, and then he uses Ratsart to get the last knockout. So I noticed that not getting the Togekiss and the Ace Pick on game one, and then game three benching the Togepi, that's what cost me the game. So yeah, I blacked out in that moment. I don't know what happened. I just so happened to not think about it. So oh, and I forgot his name was Samuel Deng. Yeah, sorry if I mispronounced your name. Sorry, but yeah, he got the game. He played it good, and well, he deserved it. So going to round four. This is a good one. I actually ended up facing the Sacramento champion, Landon Caitler. Really nice guy. We really had a blast playing. Like, I really had so much fun playing with him. But I actually asked him, like, what were we doing so soon in the game? Like, um, we should have been meeting at 5-0 or something, but no. He actually told me that he was having some bad draws. So, and I believed him because once we started playing, I noticed how hard it was for him to even get cards, just like me. So we were both breaking both sides. Like, it was weird. So game one, he goes first because he knows he has to go first. And, well, nothing special. I don't get the Togekiss. And he uses Siren Hands and gets 2 prizes. I take 2. Then I learned my lesson to limit my bench, but he was still able to use another Iron Hands and then get a final knockout with a Raichu, if I'm not mistaken. Game two is where it was really funny. I started up with 3 Gimmigholes, a Cypher Maniac, an Energy, an Earthen Vessel, a Superior Energy, and that's it. Then I pass. Then my opponent fills up its bench, but apparently the Squawk was prized, so he only fills up his bench, attaches energy to Iron Hands, and passes. Then I literally just play the Cypher Maniac, and I pass. He promotes the Pikachu, but he realized that he didn't know that I was gonna be bricked, so maybe he should have promoted the Raikou to get more draw engine. But he decides to promote the Pikachu and pass. Then I get the Gholdengo from the Cypher Maniac. I draw two cards. I get the Ace Pick and I get the Irida. So with the Irida, I get a bundle. He promotes the Magnemite. I know he doesn't play Iono, so I can freely get all my energies through the Ace Pick and just get the knockout on the Magnemite. I remember I even used the Scizor, and I also limited my bench, so this game was mine. Game three is where my bad luck really started to hit me hard. So again, he goes first. I have Greninja, Gimmiggle, and Togepi, and I wasn't scared that I only had one Gimmiggle because I had the Thornton in hand. So should he boss the Gimmiggle, I can always Thornton the Togepi or the Greninja and get the Gholdengo right away. And since I'm also limiting my bench, the Raikou is not a threat. So my opponent gets the KO on the Greninja, takes two prices. I promote the Gimmiggle. I get the Fezandipity because I kind of need it. I had to bring back the Greninja because I was short some cards, but at the end of the day, I was able to get the Gholdengo and the Togekiss, and I finally got a heads. So I'm down to three prices. He promotes Raikou. He counter catches Fezandipity, and now he's down to two prices. But here's where the interesting thing was happening. So I instead promoted the Greninja because my plan was I had Thornton in hand. So when I used the Pokestop, I was planning to use Pokestop to discard a Scyther, which indeed happened. But my plan was to evolve it into Scizor, still get the knockout with just one energy, and having the Scizor and replaced it with the Greninja meant that he could not use the Iron Hands again to get a knockout on the Greninja. And I could use the Scizor to get a one-hit KO. He couldn't get me this game. He would have needed a boss and the Raichu to win. So I forced him to have an extra card. Unfortunately, the play doesn't work, and I end up using the Thornton on the Greninja to actually get another Gimmiggle and evolve into Gholdengo. And even though I was able to draw, I never got an Irida nor a Superior. So I ended up noticing that I can't even get a one shot on the Raikou, which is easy because you only need one energy and the Superior, and that's it. So I ended up passing, which was unbelievable. He even landed, we couldn't even believe it. And then he eventually just got the Raichu, did double generator, got three energies, and retreated an attack, and he got the game. So if I would have got the knockout on the Raikou, it would have been harder for him because he only had one energy in play. He would have needed to connect three electrics from the deck plus attachment for turn. While in this one, I think he only needed one. Yeah, he only needed one energy through the generator and attach per turn, and that was it. So yeah, shout outs to him. Really nice sport, and hope we can play again. So round five, I go up against Gabriel Peña Aleman. This is funny. I was sent back to table one for being such a bad player, but I guess he was one of those players that has the VIP reserved. So I was moved over there. So this one, he was playing Roaring Moon, and there was nothing special about it because usually Roaring Moon is your opponent gets the first knockout, and then you go 2-2-2, and that's it. But the only funny thing I have to mention about this game is because he priced the Latias both games. So every game he relied on Petron EX to always get the Roaring Moon in the active. So he would damage himself by 10, and then on the last knockout, I actually used the Togepi, get the Psychic Energy, hit him for 10 damage, and then the poison would finish him off. And that was just funny to see that actually Togepi actually beat Roaring Moon. And game two, I honestly don't remember exactly how it went. I just remember that he also played priced the Latias, and everything was good from there. Now going on to round six, we go up against James Tam. This is unbelievable. This is the one part where I'm saying the deck really didn't want me to win this time. Like I was actually thinking that the Sacramento thing was just pure luck. I didn't break in Sacramento. I didn't get bad prizes because as we've seen so far, some of the games I either didn't get the cards or I priced badly with Charizard. But this is going way too far. Like this one actually went off board. So so in the game on game one, he's playing Dragapult Dusknoir. So my opponent goes first and starts his Drapey and he passes. Then I start with the Gimmiggle in my first hand, and in my first hand I have a couple Nesballs, Fire Energy, and a Cypher Maniac. So I'm thinking, perfect. I'm gonna use the Nesball to get the Greninja, and eventually I'm gonna use Cypher Maniac, discard the Fire, draw 2 cards, and start getting set up. But then, oh, the Greninja's prized, of course. Then, while doing the deck check, I noticed that the Ace Pick is priced and the Electric Energy is priced. So I'm like, well, I'm going to use the Nesball to get the second Gimmiggle. And I pass. Because. No, wait. No, sorry. So I get the second Gimmiggle, and rather than using Cypher Maniac, I use the Fire Energy to use Minor Errand Running because I thought, well, I mean, I'd rather start getting energies out of the deck because, especially against the Dragapult, where we need 7 energies to get a knockout, and without the Ace Pick, we need to get energies as quickly as possible. And also, I had the Nest Ball in hand, so I knew I could get the Pheasantipity next turn. So my opponent gets Rare Candy, Dragapult, Energy Attachment, and the Ace Pick. And I think he did that through Rotom, if I'm not mistaken, or I don't recall. Yeah, because I think he played Rotom also in the first turn. So he gets a knockout and damages my Gimmiggle. And then I promote the Gimmiggle, and I finally use Nest Ball to get the Pheasantipity. And then I use Cypher Maniac to get the Puffin and a Heavy Ball. Because that way, what I'm going to do from the energies that I got, I'm going to use the Greninja to start drawing cards. So I use that. I use the Heavy Ball. And once I look at my prices, I'm like, oh my god. It is obviously the Greninja is now out of the prices. That's a Heavy Ball. But we also have the Ace Pick, an Electric Energy, 2 Superior Energy Retrievals, and the Earthen Vessel. So once I saw that, I was like, the Earthen Vessel and the Ace Pick, I literally have no way to search energy through items. So, and then we're facing a Dragapult that I need 7 energies to get the knockout. So, oh, and then 2 Superior Energy Retrievals. I was like, are you serious? So I instead decide to use the Greninja, and then I happen to use the Counter Catcher on the Rotom because my reasoning was he already has a Drippy in the bench that he's going to start loading. So I'm going to have to force him to attach an energy retreat. So I do another minor and running. Fortunately, he doesn't Iono, but I decide not to evolve the Gimmickle in the front. Well, mainly because I needed to get the energies, and also because if I would have evolved into Gholdengo, he would have got the knockout. Then my opponent plays Radiant Alakazam, moves some damage counters to the Feza, and bosses. And then he gets 3 prizes from the damage Gimmiggle and the Feza. So now he's down to 2, and I was like, what am I gonna do here? So I stretcher the Feza because I need to draw more cards. I'm able to get a Gholdengo. I use the Cypher Maniac to get the last 2 energies out of my deck. So I barely get the 1-hit KO. And then my opponent gets the second Dragapult, and this is where the counter catcher actually came into play because since he had to attach an energy to the Rotom, he now attaches an energy to the active Dragapult, and he only hits me for 70, which is a good thing. So then I use double superior. I get the knockout. My opponent promotes Alakazam. He's got nothing. So I was able to just get the other superior out of the prizes and the electric energy. And this amazing comeback, I have no idea how I put it off. Like literally because of the prizes, I should have lost. Game 2, he goes first. I do have the egg spec, but I have 2 metal energies priced. So I'm not able to get the metal energy to attack, so I pass. I take a hit from Dragapult, and I really can't remember how it went, but the Togepi couldn't do much, so he ended up getting the game, and we go to game 3. I go first. I have Togekiss and Rare Candy in my first hand. Good. And against Dragapult, you only play the Togepi if you happen to go first. And having the Togekiss and Rare Candy was good news. So I have the Greninja. I draw 2 cards. I get a Puffin, and of course the Togepi is priced. Like, great, just great. And then I also noticed that the Festa is also priced. So now I have to think through like, what should I get with the heavy ball eventually? And well, once I get it, of course. So, oh, and by the way, the ace pick is also priced again. So just great. So once again, getting the energies the old-fashioned way. Eventually, I whiff an attack. My opponent hits the Gholdengo. I use the heavy ball to get the Togepi, but only because I needed to heal the Gholdengo. But then my opponent bosses the Gholdengo with the 6 damage counters, gets a knockout on him, gets a knockout on Togepi, and puts 1 damage counter on a Scyther I had. So I get another Gholdengo that is completely clean. Um, since I had to discard a lot of energies to through Greninja to start getting everything, I end up using one of my superior energy retrievals to get the energies plus some from the deck, and I barely get a knockout. Then promotes another Dragapult. He doesn't get a KO. I don't remember exactly how, but then I use. Then I think, okay, I could use Thornton to get the Togepi back, but then I realized I'm low on stretchers, and the last superior energy retrieval was, of course, also priced. Like, again. So, believe it or not, I was able to draw my entire deck, or minus 1 or 2 cards. And I ended up using Thornton to remove the Scyther and instead get a Gimmighoul and evolve it right away. Mostly because I didn't want him to get a cheeky knockout through 6 damage counters. So I used the 2 superior energy retrievals, the last 2. I get the knockout and I don't get the superior energy retrieval. And it was funny how my opponent actually Iono'd me. And even though I had yeah, because I got the Fecundipity out of the prices the first time. Um, so literally, despite having Fecundipity, Gholdengo, and the Stadium, I was able to redraw my entire deck. But the last Superior Energy Retrieval was priced, so I couldn't get an attack. And even though I had Boss, I could have used Boss on Aluminium, and with the Superior, I would have won. But that and getting that last Superior priced, and also the Ace pick. That's the second time that because of the ace spec being priced, I'm not able to get my energies as quickly as possible, and therefore I'm not able to get a knockout. And I have to waste all of my energies at the beginning by drawing, and eventually don't get a knockout. So by round 7, I go up against Paul Thompson, and this is where I noticed that I was starting to lose my patience. Like literally, I was starting to do a lot of bad plays. So my opponent doesn't get necessarily a very awesome start. I mean, he does get the Reggie Drago and some Teal masks. But I ended up filling my gimme goals and such. And then this is where I started to play an automatic pilot. So I use the ace pick, but rather than attacking with Gholdengo, I decide to attack with Caesar because my mind is, oh, I'm already up ahead. And I'm on even prices. I'm gonna use the Caesar to give him a hard time. But I foolishly decide to bench the Togepi. What happens? Then I keep 4 energies in hand that I did not discard because I didn't use Gholdengo. My opponent Ionos sends the 4 energies to the bottom, and then he uses the Dragapult attack to get a knockout on Caesar and the Togepi. So now he's down to 4 prices, and we're both down to 4 prices each. But then, believe it or not, I was able to bench 4 Gholdengos. And even then, I was never able to get a card that allowed me to shuffle the deck. So therefore, my energies remained at the bottom. I was not able to get the numbers, even though I did get the superior energy retrieval and such. I was not able to get the numbers, so I passed. My opponent gets the knockout with the Tina attack. Then I get the knockout, but he has another Drago, and then he gets a knockout, and I lose. So literally, I lost because my automatic pilot forgot that I should not use the ace spec willy-nilly and leave energies in my hand because they can get Ionoed. And then I also benched the Togepi, which I didn't need to, and that's what cost me the game. So game 2, it was a very slow game, but I ended up winning. I don't remember exactly how it went. In game 3, we know that we're low on time, so we decide to do a gentleman's agreement. My opponent definitely bricked. Like, he literally drew a pass. I started setting up, and then he uses research and discards 3 energy switches. So I kind of thought, okay, he already lost 3 energy switches. This game is mine. I got this in the back. And well, time was called, but because of the gentleman's agreement, I ended up winning the game. Round eight, I went against Nicholas Harikisen. Sorry if I mispronounced that. He was playing Charizard. So game one, I go first. My opponent starts with two Charmanders. He gets a turn two Charizard and gets a knockout on one of my single pricers. But then I ended up getting a knockout, and he doesn't respond because he doesn't have PGs nor nothing. And he also mentioned that he prized the two Pidgeots. So, okay, so that's game one for me. Game two, he goes first. Once again, he starts two Charmanders, plays Luminion to get an Arben because he knows I don't play Iono, so maybe it was safe for him to get it right away. He gets the Charizard and gets a KO on my Greninja. Then I noticed that while I'm trying to set up, when I do the Pokestop, I discard one of the Psychic Energies. And then I finally use my Ace Pick to get the energies. But then I realized that one energy that got discarded was the energy I needed to get a one hit KO on the Charizard. So what I ended up doing is I used the bundle to just get something promote. Oh, and I got the Togekiss as well. He promotes the Luminion. I don't remember exactly why he picked the Luminion. Maybe everything else, like the other Charmander or Duskull. I don't remember what he had, but I get the kill on the Luminion and I flip tails. So I'm down to four prices. He's down to five. Then he unfair stamps me, but he does not get the Defiance Band. So he only does 240 damage. So I ended up using double Gholdengo, Pokestop, um, then I used Puffin for a gimme goal, and I remember this play. So I remember I ended up using Puffin to get a gimme goal, and then I Thornton into a Greninja, and I ended up using a bundle again. So he could promote a Duskull, which I don't know why he did that. Now the Thornton play was because I needed the Greninja to draw extra cards. So I remember that's why I got a Gimmiggle out of the deck. So this time I do get a heads and I go down to two prices. But this is where my opponent realized that he made a huge mistake by promoting the Duskull because he had a Pidgey on the bench that he eventually didn't even evolve into Pidgeot. So he could have probably promoted the Pidgey. So what happened was my opponent Thorntoned the Rotom, I think. No, the Luminion, and he put the Duskull again. He evolves into Dusclops. He counter catchers the second Gholdengo. He uses Dusclops to get a knockout on the damaged Gholdengo, and he also gets a knockout on the active Gholdengo. So he takes four prizes in one turn. But the problem was, since he promoted the Duskull, he was forced to use the Thornton. Had he promoted the Pidgey, the Duskull would still be there, and rather than using Thornton, he could have used Briar and get the knockout and take out the last prizes. So also, and the fact that he wasn't able to use Iono, then that meant that I have all my cards in hand, and eventually I was able to Serendipity, get another Gholdengo, and get the last knockout on the Charizard. So yep. Well, good thing he realized his mistake. Hopefully, he learns from that. But shout outs to Nicholas. That was a good game. So, and the last round is against a Snorlax Order Box. So I only needed that one win to get top 512. But unfortunately, that was not the case. So I ended up starting with Greninja on game one. He starts with Cornerstone Mask. So I kind of realized what this is going to. So I decided to Puffin the Scyther and the Togepi because I need to make sure I get extra prices as quickly as possible. So next turn, I evolve the Scizor and attach a metal. And then he attaches the fan onto the cornerstone, and then he starts benching Mimikyu, and he passes. Then I retreat the Greninja, get an attack, and the energy moves to the Greninja. Then my opponent pennies the Mimikyu and benches two Snorlax and passes. Then I realized that the switch and the Thornton were priced, of course. The switch is needed to prevent the Snorlax from getting me stuck and at least use it once. And the Thornton was to get rid of the Greninja because I could have used the Thornton to uh, switch it with a bundle and then use the bundle and discard, and that way I get rid of the target. So that way I can stick with just the Togekiss for extra prizes and also to poke the Snorlax, or the Scissor to just attack. And I get the knockout. I get the switch out of the prizes. My opponent immediately gets Arven, Countercatcher, the Greninja with two metal energies attached. So, of course, he passes. Then I realize that I need to get a one hit KO. Like, literally, I need to get the one hit KO. So I got the Gimmiggle out, attached the metal, and, well, pass, evolve, try to get some energies. And then he immediately Eries and discards my switch, and that's when I concede. Game two, I start with Togepi, he starts with Snorlax. So I'm thinking, okay, I can just attach three energies to the Togepi, evolve into Togekiss, and just get some pressure with 140. And then maybe I can get the Caesar in case he decides to play the Cornerstone Mask. But then, oh, the Togekiss prize, of course. So literally, Togepi just ended up getting in the way. So I play the Scyther and the Gimmiggle. He starts to misfortune in the area and get rid of my resources. I'm able to use Switch to get the knockout on the Snorlax using the Gholdengo. But then he immediately counter catches the Togepi. And literally the whole game, I just kept drawing and drawing and drawing and drawing and drawing and drawing. And it wasn't until I was down to 5 cards left in my deck that I was able to get the Thornton. By that point, I was like, what was I supposed to do with it again? So I just Thornton the Togepi for a Pheasantipity and start sniping him. But I was only down to 5 cards, so technically my opponent could just literally penny all he wanted and stall me out until I was done. Since I don't have no recovery cards, and eventually that got me the game lost. So well, I already extended myself a lot. I know I probably went overboard, but I really wanted to give some detail on what happened. So unfortunately, that's what happened. I went 4-4-1. I kind of feel that we can improve the deck a little bit. Like maybe we can get rid of the Seesaw line and instead focus on on getting more consistency out of the deck. Like maybe get a second Togekiss or a second Togepi. I don't think. Actually, I don't think that would be necessarily a good idea. Maybe the second Togekiss, I do agree, but I'm thinking between getting an extra Ultra Ball, getting the Vacuum to get the double Pokestop possibility, or I don't know. It's a lot of thought process I need to think here, um, but yeah, well, the run wasn't as good as I expected it to be, and that's pretty much it. So well, next stop is going to be San Antonio in just a month, so I have plenty of time to think if I'm either going to improve this list or I'm going to go for something else. But in the meantime, well, this is what happened. So, in conclusion, Goldengo's still strong if you don't break and you don't get bad pricings like I did. So, hopefully, if you guys are down to playing Goldengo, I really encourage you to do so. And yeah, just try to learn the flow and also the most consistent way to draw cards and also the best sequencing you need to in order to get everything you need, and eventually you'll start getting wings. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case for me this regional, but hopefully we can make up for it in San Antonio. So thank you all, and I hope you enjoyed this video.